We're still in chapter 11, so it's the parable of the shepherd. Zechariah had been commanded to watch a flock of sheep doomed for slaughter. He then fired 3 shepherds, and the flock hated him. They preferred the unfit shepherds, the unfit leaders. So he terminated his care for the flock and broke his staff name favor. So I'm going to pick up in verses 12 and 13. I said to them, "If it is good in your sight, give me my wages, but if not, never mind." So they weighed out 30 shekels of silver as my wages. Then the Lord said to me, "Throw it to the potter, that magnificent price at which I was valued by them." So I took the 30 shekels of silver and threw them to the potter in the house of the Lord. So they paid him 30 pieces of silver, which was such a small amount, it was an insult. So he throws the 30 pieces of silver to the potter in the house of the Lord. If you don't know the story, Judas was one of the 12 disciples of Jesus. Judas went to the chief priest and asked, "What are you willing to give me if I deliver Jesus over to you?" And they counted 30 pieces of silver. Judas, who betrayed Jesus, regretted what he did. He didn't repent, he regretted what he did. So he brings the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and tells them, "I betrayed innocent blood." And the chief priests respond with, "Nah, that's not our problem." So Judas threw the money into the temple and left and went and hanged himself. You can read about this in Matthew chapter 27. What we're reading about in the book of Zechariah was written 5 centuries before Christ was born. It has the price that the Good Shepherd, ultimately Jesus, would be betrayed for, 30 pieces of silver. It has the site where it would happen in verse 13, in the house of the Lord. It has the ultimate recipient of the money, a potter. When Judas threw the money on the temple floor, the chief priest couldn't put it in the treasury because it's blood money. So the chief priest decided to purchase a field to bury foreigners. They had this custom that if foreigners died in town and say no one knew where the foreigner came from, it was the temple's responsibility to bury the foreigner. So the chief priest can't put the money in the treasury because it's blood money. So they bought a potter's field as a burial ground. So the nature of all of this was the purchase of blood. Crazy. Verse 14, "Then I broke my staff called union." This symbolizes the breaking of the family bond between Judah and Israel. Within one generation of the crucifixion of Jesus, Jerusalem was totally destroyed. Jews were scattered. Their brotherhood and union among themselves was broken. For almost 2,000 years, they didn't have a homeland. It wasn't until May of 1948, when Israel became a nation, that Jews were allowed to return to Israel, but the dispersion continues for the majority of Jews today. In fact, in Romans chapter 11, Paul talks about a coming time when all Israel will be saved. And there's plenty of debates on what Paul means by all Israel, and I don't have time to go into that. The main point is that there is some sense of future for Israel. God's promises will not be broken. So I'm going to continue verses 15 through 17. It describes a day when the Lord will raise up a foolish shepherd. Because they rejected the good shepherd, there will be a rise in a coming world leader. This is the false shepherd. We're warned about this in Matthew chapter 24, perilous times. In the book of 2 Thessalonians, it talks about the man of lawlessness. Because they rejected the good shepherd, a foolish and worthless shepherd replaces him. A selfish, greedy, corrupt leader will arise and afflict the flock. So verse 17, "Woe to the worthless shepherd who leaves the flock. A sword will be on his arm and on his right eye. His arm will be totally withered, and his right eye will be blind." We read about this in Revelation 13, a coming world leader called the beast. So the beast receives a fatal wound. Since Christ died, actually, it appears that Antichrist will also actually die. but his fatal wound will be healed, and the world will be amazed and follow the beast. Isn't that weird that Jesus died and was resurrected and they rejected him? In contrast, the Antichrist will die. His fatal wound will be healed, and the world will be amazed and follow the beast. What I find interesting in Zechariah, it says that the Antichrist's arm will be totally withered and his right eye will be blind. And I just wonder, could this be why the Antichrist loyal followers receive a mark on their right hand or forehead? I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting observation. Anyway.